wasn't the best start. It's not fantasy at all, which is the only thing I really talk about and the only thing I normally read. The ending was devastating. I completely missed a book. It's really quite a depressing read. I don't want to spoil too much. Hello and welcome back to my last video of my 12 days of Bookmas, and today is one of the most exciting videos of the year and it is my best books of 2022. And I've got 4 that like definitely hit the mark. 2 kind of honorary mentions, and then 1 final possibly could be in this, but because we still got about a week, well, we've got a couple days left of the year. I haven't finished it yet, but it could still slip in. So I just want to keep it in this video just in case it is in here. But it's not definite, but it almost is definite that it's one of them. So 2022 was a weird reading year for me. It was not consistent at all. In fact, I didn't really read anything until May, June time of the year. So like the first half didn't exist. I finished a couple books in January. I then took ages to finish a book, didn't finish it till March, and then I didn't pick up a book or finish a book till May. It wasn't the best start. I think I'll read about 36 books overall. I'm on 34 at the moment, but I think I'll finish 2 before the end of the year, which isn't bad. It's like pretty consistent for me. I'm just so annoyed that if I'd read for the first half of the year, I'd have done so much better. But I was in a reading slump, you know, those things can't be helped. One of the books though that got me out of that reading slump is one that I have here, and it's not at all part of my usual genre at all. It's kind of historical fiction, but it's more of like a lifetime saga of this one girl going from like her childhood right to the end of her life, and it is The Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. For The Great Circle, we follow this girl who, well, it originally starts looking at her dad, who is the ship captain of this big kind of like Titanic-esque ship that like transports people and merchandise across the water from America, I believe, to Britain. He ends up taking the brunt of this big explosion that happens for the company that he works for, the people that he works for. He takes the brunt of it and it ends up in prison when she's just a baby. Her mum is not in the picture, unknown circumstances. Well, we kind of know what happens to her, but I won't go into that. She's not in the picture, so she ends up going and living with her twin brother with her uncle. And he lives in a very rural area. He's an artist. He kind of just lets them do what they want. They kind of run ragged. They become like kind of wild children. And then one day a plane flies over, and it's when planes are just becoming a thing. I believe it's between the 2 world wars. And she sees a plane fly over and decides that's what she wants to be. She wants to be a pilot. So it's just about her kind of like going against life and trying to achieve this goal. She meets her husband, who's a bit of a gangster, a bit of a mobster, not a very good person. She has to like kind of deal with that. You have a few timelines going on as well. But I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was such a great book and just such an interesting read. And she was such an interesting character. She's very socially awkward. She just does her own thing. She doesn't really care what other people think. She's just got a lot of gumption, a lot of determination, and just a bit of grit to her that I just really enjoyed reading. I like this one. I really would recommend it. It's not fantasy at all, which is the only thing I really talk about and the only thing I normally read. So I think that was what I needed to kind of get me out of the reading slump and back into reading fantasy, because the rest of the books are all fantasy in this video. The next book that I would say was 5 stars is The Best Served Cold. So I read all of Joe Abercrombie's books that I've read so far this year. He was the first book I finished at Blade Itself at the beginning of the year. I then read the rest of the trilogy, and then this is the first standalone after the trilogy. And I loved this. I think it is the best book that I read this year. This is my all-time favourite book, or one of my all-time favourite books at the moment. I absolutely adored it. The world that this is set in is rather complex. The trilogy, I have no idea how to describe it because there's so many different characters and point of views in that one that it did get a little bit lost by the end of it, the trilogy for me. This book is set on one of the other countries that we haven't really explored before, following a character that we do see in the end of the trilogy, so we have a bit of familiarity there, but also brand new characters that we've never seen before, and it's a lot more contained. They're kind of going on this heist. One of our main characters, Monza, her brother has been murdered by their employer, so she's on this big revenge streak to kill all the people that were involved in his murder and who betrayed her. She does that by getting together a group of different characters. So we've got a poisoner, his apprentice, we've got kind of the brute character, and they all come together and go on this kind of adventure almost to avenge the brother. But there's more to it than that. Like, the brother wasn't necessarily the best person, but that's kind of been revealed over time as to how their relationship worked. I just absolutely loved it, and it was just brilliant. I thought the plot was great, the story were great, the characters were great, and the ending was devastating, as Joe Abercrombie does. So I love this man. It's brilliant. Absolutely loved it. The next 5-star book that I read is The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson. So this is obviously the last book in the second era of the Mistborn world. I do have a full review of it, of course, up on my channel if you'd like to watch that. But as a brief overview, I loved this one so much. I don't know what it was about it. Like, the second trilogy is not my favourite trilogy in the Cosmere that Brandon Sanderson has created. But this book just had something different to it. I think the characters really took on their own, like, personalities a little bit more. They had a little bit more gumption to them, a little bit more drive in a way that they hadn't before, especially the female characters. And I really appreciated that. And I thought the plot was so much more kind of energetic. There was just more going on. It just seemed to just be a little bit better than I was expecting, and I just loved it. And obviously Wayne is one of my favourite characters of all time, and it was great to see him again. So I loved being back in this world. I completely missed a book, so this is not in order at all. My all-time favourite series that I read this year, like, it's phenomenal. Absolutely raved about it a lot. But it is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I couldn't pick which one I wanted to do in this video, like which one of the books in this trilogy. Mainly because I read them literally like one after the other, like I powered through them. So in my head, they kind of just merge into one big story. But I just picked the first one as I kind of honorary guest of the rest of them. But this was a phenomenal series. Like, it is raved about a lot, and I think it's totally valid that it is. She just has created such interesting and problematic characters that you can't help but be gripped by it. So much destruction happens, so many devastating events happen in this. It is really quite a depressing read, but also the characters have just got so much resilience, determination, and there's friendships in there, there's betrayals, you've got like drama, you've got war, you've got devastation, you've just got everything in this book. It was just like every page, you're just like, what is going on? It was so good. I absolutely loved this. It was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant read. Would highly recommend this series. If you're on the fence at all, do give it a go. I actually didn't like this the first time I tried reading it. I got about halfway through. Like, I gave it a good shot, and I didn't like it, and I was like, no, I'm just going to put this down. I might not be in the mood for it. I'll come back later. I'm so glad that I came back to it later, because I have no regrets at all reading this. Absolutely loved it. One of my all-time favourite series of all time. It will always be that, I think. I don't think I'll ever change my mind on that. So I've got two kind of honorary mentions that didn't quite make the 5-star kind of, oh my gosh, I love this book so much level, but I think they possibly could after I've read a little bit more of that author's work or more of that in the series. So the first one I have is Mort by Terry Pratchett. It took me a while to get used to his writing style, and it's quite quick, it's quite choppy, it kind of like goes back and forth. You'll sometimes have two conversations happening at the same time. So yeah, it's kind of like you have to kind of work a little bit harder than I expected to follow along with his train of thought. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. I enjoyed the plot, the characters as well, and that kind of leads me on to the book I think could have been the 5th book out of those if I'd finished it before doing this video. But that is the second Terry Pratchett that I'm currently reading, and it's Reaper Man, which is the second book in the kind of death. If you're going to follow like the characters, the death character, I'm loving this so much more. This is going to be a 5-star read if I finish it and love it as much as I have. I've got about 125 pages left to finish it, but I'm just enjoying it because I don't have to think so hard about the writing. I don't have to, like, there's less jokes in it that I don't understand, whereas there was a few in that I just didn't get, or I just didn't think kind of worked. Whereas this, I think there's more of a balance between kind of just like clever puns and plays on words that he likes to do versus just like kind of like bits that I don't understand. So I'm enjoying this a lot more. This is my honorary, possibly could be in this. Keep an eye on my Goodreads to see if it will make a 5-star. But yeah, I did really like this. I bought the rest of the Death series, so I will be continuing on with this character arc and more of Terry Pratchett because I did really enjoy it. And then the other one and final book in this video is The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. This was incredibly complex, and I've spent most of the time reading this very confused, which is why it didn't get the 5 stars. And the romance is on the verge of being really good, but it's just quite not there yet. But I think those things are all going to be fixed when I get to the second book, because all the build-ups happened. You know, we're into the main plot of the book now. It is going to be a trilogy, so there's one book already out after this one, and I think the third one comes out next year. So I'm excited to continue on with it, and I think the series as a whole could become a 5-star series, but this is just not quite there yet. But I did really love it, so I want to talk about it and I want other people to read it. We follow quite a few different points of views In this book, there's 3 main female points of views as the main characters. We have Princess Milani, who's been imprisoned by her brother because she refused to commit suicide. He's a kind of tyrannical emperor of this world or this country. She's been locked in a burnt and abandoned temple that was destroyed because the children there 20 or so years ago started getting powers that were threatening to the emperor of the time, so he killed them. There is, however, 2 surviving children from this temple who are other 2 main characters. We have Priya, who is currently a maidservant, but she becomes a maidservant to Milani as they're entrapped, and their relationship blossoms, and she's very powerful, and she's just kind of rediscovering her abilities and her confidence and her own kind of ability to do things and make a difference. We also have Bhumika. She's become, I think, the wife of the lord who kind of runs the city that this temple is in. So she's quite powerful in like political standards. She just like plays the victim quite well just to like her advantage, and she's trying just to make a life out of what she's been given. But as time goes on and she realizes that things need to change, she kind of like changes that. I don't want to spoil too much, but it's a lot of rebellion. 2 different kind of types of rebellions are happening that are kind of conflicting. They're not necessarily good rebellions, even though their agenda might be good. They're actually, the way and methods of doing it are actually quite destructive and counterproductive. So there needs to be a change in that direction. There's all those kind of things going on. I really enjoyed it, and I think it will be really good, and I want more people to read it, so it's in the video. So that is the end of the video, and that is the best books that I read in 2022. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you had a good reading year in 2022. I have high hopes and expectations for 2023. I've got so many books I plan to read and want to read. I'm in such a reading mood. It's going to be brilliant. Hopefully that will last the whole year, and we'll have a much better year, or better start to the year than we did in 2022. Thank you again for watching. Please do like and subscribe if you'd like to see more in the upcoming months, and I will see you in the next video next Sunday.